Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Penny and this is Little by Little. So this video is taking just a little bit of a left turn away from the Homestead House project, but is necessary for me anyway for the project itself. So I'm at the stage now where I have to hang curtains in the house. And if you have ever tried to work with regular fabric in miniature form, you probably already know that it doesn't behave the same way in miniature as it does in real size. Nothing drapes the way it's supposed to. You don't get natural pleating in fabric when you're trying to do it in miniature. And if you want it to look like it's authentic, sometimes you have to cheat a little bit and make the pleats that you're looking for. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Now, I watched this video about this product called a Pretty Pleater. And it's a cool little thing. It's a little board. I think it's made out of silicone or something similar to that, where there's these grooves and you put your fabric over top, with whatever, whether you're spray starch or a glue bath or whatever, and you push these little rods into each of the spaces, and then it dries and it kind of comes out in this wavy. And I thought, awesome, I need one of these Pretty Pleaters. And so I went on a hunt to find one. Wow, I looked on Amazon, I looked on different websites. We're making a trip down to the States in June. I was hoping maybe something like Hobby Lobby would have it or Joann's. Couldn't find it anywhere, except for one place, and that was eBay. And it was eBay in the States. So for this little pleater, which like I said it's like 8 inches by 5 inches silicone, the price tag on eBay was $80. And then they wanted to charge another $20 for shipping. So that's $100. With conversion, because I'm in Canada, that little piece of silicone would have cost me $130. Ain't no way I'm paying $130 for something like that. And $130 is a lot of money, and I feel like if I'm going to spend $130 on craft supplies, it's not going to be this little Pretty Pleater. So I have decided to make my own Pretty Pleater, not out of silicone because I don't have that ability, but I'm going to make it out of some foam board and some pieces of wood and some barbecue skewers. And I think in total, if I had to add up all of the costs, now I have everything that I've used already, so it didn't cost me anything extra. But even if you were going out and buying the materials to make this little pleater, you could probably do that for under $5. So today I'm going to show you how I made that pleater. I hope you enjoy it. So here I have my doubled up foam board, and I've cut this to 5 inches by 7.5 inches. And then I've gone in and I've drawn a line every inch all the way across so that I have 5 equal sections. These lines will help keep everything straight as we're moving across with the wood dowels. The wood dowels that I'm using are going to be barbecue skewers. And the one thing I can tell you about barbecue skewers is that there's no such thing as a perfectly straight one. I've gone in and I've weeded out the ones that were really bad, but they all have a slight curve to them. However, they are very flexible and pliable. So even though if you were to just glue it on and leave it, you can see that it leaves quite a gap. However, you can very easily straighten them, and it might mean holding them for a second or two while it dries, or you can turn it onto the side that's curved and push it down. But there's ways to make it straight that aren't terribly difficult. So I've gone in and glued my first skewer to the edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue a skewer down, like basically leaving the space of one skewer in between. So one will be used as a spacer, the other one will be glued down. I'll remove the spacer and we'll carry on so that when we're finished, we will have skewers basically that far apart. So I'm going to start putting some glue. And learn not to get too carried away putting the glue too far over, because then you end up gluing things down that you didn't want to. So So now that all of those dowels are glued down, now I have to seal it. And the reason that we're sealing it is because anytime you're making pleats in fabric, you're typically doing it one of two ways. You're either using a spray starch or you're taking a very watered down glue and misting it on the fabric. Either way, your fabric is generally going to be damp when you start working it into these grooves. And if your fabric is damp, eventually it will start to warp either the foam board or the wood dowels or both. By putting a layer or two of some glossy podge on there, you're going to seal both of those. And then when you put damp fabric on top of it, it's not going to impact the structure of your pleat maker. So I'm going to be using some glossy podge. I'm not 100% sure if it matters if you use matte or glossy. I think they're both sealers, so both will probably work. But this is what I have on hand today, so that's what I'm going to use. So I'm just going to take this podge and I'm just going to work it down into each of these grooves so that I'm putting a good layer onto the foam board as well as the wood dowel. All right, part 2. So this is just going to be put on the opposite side of the first one. And as you can see, I've marked out some lines as well just to keep everything straight. And I'm going to be using for this side some coffee stir sticks as the borders, so to speak, that'll go all the way across. And then we'll use wood dowels to push the fabric down into those separated pieces. So I'm going to use the coffee stir sticks, but they're not very thick. And I'm concerned about just using them single ply. I think that would be pretty easy to knock them over. So I'm going to start by doubling up the sticks so that I have at least 1/8 of an inch in thickness all the way across. And that works, I think, well with these wood dowels because they're just about the same amount of width. So to glue, I'll put this aside for now. So for gluing these together, very simple, I'm just going to use wood glue. The sticks together, and you will need to either clamp them or put an elastic around them or something so that they stay straight for you. So to measure the distance between your wood pieces, I'm going to use one of the skewers that we'll use to push the fabric down. And then I'm also going to add one piece of this coffee stir stick because I think that the width of this coffee stir stick will take the place of the width of the fabric when you're trying to push it in there. So now when I take those out, I actually have a little bit wider than this bar, which, as I said, is going to give me some room for the fabric as well. So I'm going to carry on all the way up to the end, and then we'll come back and we'll test it out. Just like the other side, we have to protect it from moisture. So we've got our podge, and we're going to go ahead and give it at least 2 coats of podge all the way across, not just the tops of the sticks, but also getting into these grooves as well. So this second method is probably going to give you a little bit deeper pleats, and it's also probably going to work better for a thicker fabric. Now that everything is dry and everything has been podged over and sealed, we're going to try it and make sure it works. So this is just a plain piece of cotton fabric. It's from my old quilting stash, and I haven't done any hems on it or anything. This is just to see if the pleating actually works. And so I've cut it You can actually cut a piece of fabric wider than your board because you're going to lose some of that bulk by tucking it into those spaces, right? So your piece of fabric can be a little bit longer if you desire. So I'm going to try a couple of different things. I'm going to try a watered down glue, and I'm also going to try a spray starch to see if one works better than the other or if they both kind of work the same. So I'm going to start with some watered down glue. So I have in here, I put a fair bit of water and then just put enough glue to make it look kind of like skim milk. And you want to make sure that you mix it really good, because if you leave glue on the bottom, it'll stick and be kind of goopy on your fabric. So I'm just going to take my fabric and I'm just going to lay it in that water glue and get it nice and wet. I'm going to squeeze off a little bit of the excess water because it doesn't have to be soaking wet. Okay, and I'm just going to lay that on the board, put this aside. And I'm just going to take some large popsicle sticks and start working that into those little grids. So I'm going to take a stick and I'm just going to start pushing it into the different grooves of our pleater. So we'll put this one down into the pleater, and you'll probably have to hold that in while you put the second one in, because I think if you don't, it'll probably push the other side out, because you definitely want the fabric to come from this end, not the end that you've already put into the pleater. So I'm just going to keep moving my stick, holding down the most recent one that I did, and then pushing in the next one. Okay, so you can see that that's pushed all the way into the grooves, and then we're just going to give that a chance to dry. All right, we're back. So as I said, this was done using a glue bath, and so we're just going to pull it up and see how it turned out. So you can see that the pleats are all still very well maintained, even after pulling it up off of the board. And I think this actually worked quite well. It's pretty stiff, so I don't think that over time it's going to start to loosen or lose its shape on you. I did one also using spray starch, which is this one. I actually find this one doesn't feel as thick because, of course, it's just starch rather than glue. And I don't think it would ever lose its shape either, unless maybe there was a lot of humidity, in which case my whole house would be in trouble because it's made out of foam board. So I think if I had to choose for these two pieces, I think I would probably go with the spray starch, but either one will work. So now we're going to try the other side. So this is the side that we use the stir sticks on, and we'll use the rods to push the fabric down. Now for this kind of fabric, I've already tried spray starch. Did not make any difference at all. Once I pulled it out of the pleater, it was as straight as when it went in. So glue bath is really the only way that I'm going to get this particular fabric to pleat. And it's quite possible that it is like a permanent press or has some sort of an anti-wrinkle kind of fabric in it, and that's why the spray starch didn't work. But the glue bath will hopefully work better. So we're going to pop it into the glue. This is actually a little thicker as well, so that's another reason why I think this second side or this second method will work a little bit better. So we'll put it up in here, and now we're just going to take our sticks, start popping them in. I also feel like this one might give us a little bit deeper pleats as well, if that's the effect that you're looking for. And those rods sit in there really nice. There's not much need to weight anything down. So we'll let that dry and see what that looks like. So here's that piece of lace after it's come out of the pleater. It's definitely not as set in there as that piece of cotton was, but I think it still gives a good enough effect for this type of curtain that I need. I tried a second one. It's a little bit better. Might have had something to do with the amount of glue I put on, I'm not sure. Final thoughts, if I had to choose now between the two sides, I think I would definitely go with the second side. So that's the side made out of the coffee stir sticks and the rods pushing into the grooves. I just think it works better. It's just a lot easier to handle. If you are in the market for a pleater and you want to check out that pretty pleater, if you can get it for a decent price, great. But if not, this is another option, and I hope you've gotten some value out of this tutorial. And that brings us to the end of this tutorial, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.